I came here today to speak about why Ontario trade unions should not support the government of Ukraine, and in fact why the Ontario Federation of Labour should censure the Zelensky regime. The current government of Ukraine is an anti-labor government. In fact, it is probably the most anti-labor government in all of Europe. Why do I say so? It's because President Zelensky's labor reforms have removed trade union representation from about 70% of Ukraine's workers, enabled zero labor contracts, overhauled Ukraine's labor code for the worse, and worked hard to sell off state enterprises at bargain basement prices to oligarchs and foreign investors. According to Open Democracy, an online publication, and I quote, on August 17th of this year, Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky ratified Law 5371, which removes rights for workers at small and medium-sized companies. It will be effective for as long as the country is under martial law, a qualification added at the last minute under pressure from trade unions. Under the new law, people who work for firms with up to 250 employees will now be covered by contracts they negotiate as individuals with their bosses rather than by the National Labor Code. In practice, this means that around 70% of workers in Ukraine have been stripped of many labor protections. Collective agreements negotiated by unions over salary and holidays, for instance, will no longer apply. The law also removes the legal authority of trade unions to veto workplace dismissals. The Ukrainian government has claimed it's trying to alleviate the difficulties faced by companies in wartime. However, it first tried to introduce the new law in 2021, that is to say, before the war even started. Ukraine's ruling Servant of the People Party argued that the extreme overregulation of employment contradicts the principles of market self-regulation and modern personnel management. And that's the end of the quote. The Ukrainian Federation of Trade Unions has strongly opposed Law 5371. A joint European Union and International Labor Organization panel has harshly criticized it. Other Ukrainians argue that the Zelensky government is using Russia's special military operation as a pretext to push for deregulation and the stripping back of the Social Security network. But Law 5371 isn't the whole story. In July, Zelensky's government passed two other laws. One permits employers to stop paying workers who have been drafted into the military, while the other legalizes zero-hour contracts. You may ask, what is a zero-hour contract? Zero-hour contracts are an anti-worker, anti-union practice devised in the UK to permit employers, such as McDonald's, to hire employees without specifying a minimum number of hours per week. Needless to say, these contracts further immiserate and impoverish the lives of UK and Ukrainian workers and undermine the ability of unions to organize the unorganized. And secretly, according to the European Public Service Union, the UK Tory government has been advising the Ukrainian government, and I quote from the European Public Service Union. Leaked documents show that the UK government, via its development aid arm, UK Aid, and the UK Embassy in Kiev, is funding consultants to assist the Ukrainian Ministry of Economy in selling its neoliberal market reforms to the Ukrainian people. The UK effectively tries to undermine efforts of the ILO, International Labour Organization, and the European Commission to advise the social partners and the government on the labor reforms by financing propaganda to create a climate against unions. End of quote. According to Le Monde, it so happens that Zelensky's main economic advisor is an economist from Cambridge University by the name of Alexander Rodnyansky, who coincidentally is the son of the founder of the TV channel that made Volodymyr Zelensky, the comedian, known to the general public in Ukraine. In an interview with The Guardian in October, Radnyansky made no secret of the fact that Ukraine must become attractive through a vast system of privatization and a complete overhaul of labor laws, which includes scrapping the minimum wage. Among the revisions proposed to the Ukraine's labor code are lengthening the workday to 12 hours and permitting employers to dismiss workers without justification. Both of these measures were already enabled in practice by Law 2136, passed in March 22nd by the Ukrainian parliament, just 1 month into the war. The Federation of Trade Unions of Ukraine is launching a challenge to Law 5371 in the country's constitutional court and is appealing to the ILO and other international bodies. It argues that the martial law prevented it from calling protests and strikes to oppose the legislation. However, the goal may be difficult for the Federation to achieve because the Zelensky government has also moved to seize the assets of trade unions, including their buildings and bank accounts. Western international labor bodies such as the International Trade Union Confederation have criticized Zelensky's labor reforms. In a statement dated July 20th, 2022, Sharon Burrow, ITUC General Secretary, said, and I quote, "It is a grotesque situation that while Ukrainian workers defend the country and care for the injured, sick, and displaced, that they are now under attack from their own parliament while their backs are turned. The big majority of Ukraine's workers work for enterprises with less than 250 employees, and it is these workers who will be deprived of protection of their wages, conditions, and safety if President Zelensky signs the bills into law," which he did, by the way. On top of that, the threat to confiscate property from the unions is aimed at stopping them opposing the draconian bills, and which will allow oligarchs to take future ownership of them at bargain basement prices. End of quote. And now this is the most important part of what I had to say today, and that is, for its part, the Canadian Labour Congress under B. Brusky announced it was standing with Ukraine on the very first day of the war. However, the CLC, which is an affiliate of the above-mentioned International Trade Union Confederation, has regrettably failed to join other labor bodies, such as the International Labor Organization, in condemning Zelensky's anti-union reforms. The CLC's silence on the Ukrainian government's attack on workers demonstrates, then, that it stands with the anti-union Ukrainian government and the oligarchs, and not with the Ukrainian workers and their unions. And that's why we're here today at the Ontario Federation of Labor Convention. We think that Ontario Labor should distance itself from the Zelensky regime, which besides attacking labor's rights has also outlawed opposition parties, jailed their leaders, and has even banned freedom of religion, closing down certain Greek Orthodox churches, arresting religious leaders, and seizing church properties. It is an anti-worker, anti-union, and anti-democratic regime which the Ontario Labor should shun. Ontario trade unionists should use the opportunity of this OFL convention to demand that the CLC denounce the Zelensky regime's attack on workers. Thank you for your kind attention.